Good day, class. Today in JSS 2 Civic Education we are studying the rule of law, one of the most important principles of democratic governance. Understanding the rule of law helps you recognize when government acts fairly and when it does not. The rule of law means that the law, not the personal decisions of rulers or officials, governs society. Everyone, regardless of their position, wealth, or power, is subject to and must obey the same law. No person is above the law. The concept of the rule of law was developed by the British constitutional lawyer BECE in his 1885 work, Introduction to the Study of the Law of the Constitution. BECE identified three main principles of the rule of law. The first principle, supremacy of the law. The law is supreme over every person and institution. Government can only act according to law. It cannot imprison, punish, or deprive any person of their rights except through a lawful process. Arbitrary power, the power to act without legal basis, is excluded. In Nigeria, this principle means that even the president, state governors, and security agencies must act within the law. When the police arrest someone, they must follow legal procedures. They cannot simply detain a person indefinitely without charge. The second principle, equality before the law. All persons are equal before the law, regardless of rank, class, religion, ethnicity, or gender. No person is entitled to special treatment under the law, and no person is subject to harsher treatment because of who they are. In practice, this means a government minister accused of a crime must face the same legal process as an ordinary citizen. This principle is often expressed in the phrase, "The law is no respecter of persons." In Nigeria, this principle is reflected in Chapter 4 of the 1999 Constitution, which prohibits discrimination on grounds of community, ethnic group, place of origin, sex, religion, or political opinion. The third principle, predominance of legal spirit. The rights of citizens are best protected not just by written law but by the spirit of the law as interpreted by independent courts. Laws must reflect justice and human dignity, not just technical rules. Independent courts that can rule against the government when it acts unlawfully are essential to the rule of law. Importance of the rule of law in Nigeria. The rule of law protects citizens from abuse of power by government officials. When law enforcement agencies, politicians, or bureaucrats know that they are subject to the law and can be held accountable, they are less likely to abuse their positions. The rule of law creates certainty and predictability. Businesses can invest, individuals can plan their lives, and social interaction is regulated by known and stable rules rather than the unpredictable whims of powerful individuals. The rule of law enables peaceful resolution of disputes through courts and legal processes rather than violence. The rule of law is the foundation of democracy. Free and fair elections, freedom of speech, and other democratic rights are only possible when there is a functioning rule of law. Challenges to the rule of law in Nigeria. Despite constitutional guarantees, the rule of law faces significant challenges in Nigeria. These include selective enforcement of the law. Powerful and wealthy individuals sometimes avoid legal consequences for their actions. Police brutality and illegal detention. Citizens are sometimes detained without charge, tortured, or denied access to lawyers, in violation of their constitutional rights. Corruption in the judiciary. Some judges have been accused of taking bribes to decide cases. Executive interference with the judiciary. Government sometimes attempt to influence court decisions, and inadequate access to justice. Legal fees and the slow pace of courts mean that many ordinary Nigerians cannot effectively enforce their rights. The National Judicial Council, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, and civil society organizations all work to strengthen the rule of law in Nigeria. As citizens, knowing your rights and insisting on due process, proper legal procedures, is your contribution to upholding the rule of law. When you speak out against illegal arrest, demand accountability from officials, and support independent courts, you are defending the rule of law.